Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads, and I have to say, my reading plans this week have not gone how I had thought it would at all. So my initial plan was to read two shorter works of history Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That didn't turn out. My Friday was my mother's birthday, and we went over to my brother's to celebrate after it stopped raining. So I didn't read anything on Friday. On Saturday, I read Blood and Iron, The Rise and Fall of the German Empire, 1871 to 1918 by Katja. This is a slim history of the German Empire from the post-Napoleonic nationalist stirrings to the unification wars waged by Prussia against Denmark, Austria, and France, and basically the life of the German Empire under Wilhelm I and Otto von Bismarck and Wilhelm II. And of course, Germany's ultimate defeat in World War I. I love this book. It was phenomenal. My only critique is that it's not 600 more pages. I would have loved that. And I think that's kind of what I want. I think this period of German history really could bear, particularly if it's in the style of, like, say, Stephen Harrigan or Simon Heffer, would be amazing. That's, I think, definitely what I would love to see. So I definitely loved Blood and Iron, and that was the lone positive of my reading week. On Sunday, I decided to get a start on Tutankhamun's Trumpet, Ancient Egypt in 100 Objects from the Boy King's Tomb by Toby Wilkinson. This is a strange history of ancient Egypt, drawing on 100 items found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Tutankhamun was one of the last kings of the 18th dynasty, a dynasty which founded the New Kingdom after the Second Intermediate Period. Tutankhamun was the son and successor of Akhenaten, who is famed or reviled as the heretic king who basically switched Egypt's official religion from largely centering on Amun and other major gods to, at least officially, solely focusing on the solar disk, the Aten, to eventually the denigration of Amun, who had been for centuries previous to this the king of the gods and the most important of the priesthoods, or his priesthood being the most important. After Akhenaten's death, his successors, including Tutankhamun, acted fairly quickly to restore Amun to his traditional place. And then after Tutankhamun, since he had a slew of health problems, not only because, in ancient Egypt, as in much of human history, humans were beset by any number of diseases and deformities, but Tutankhamun had a number of deformities and was very likely the product of incest, which the Egyptians did practice at a royal level, although depending on who you talk to, or whose mother is championed by various Egyptologists. But anyway, so needless to say, Tutankhamun died young, came to the throne young, and though he reigned for about 10 years, he died before he was 20, and his tomb had gone undiscovered until 1922. Anyway, so we are in the centennial of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, which actually will fall next week. So So there's a whole slew of books on ancient Egypt, which is nice because ancient Egypt doesn't seem to get a whole lot of like press attention. Like there aren't a whole lot of new books coming out on ancient Egypt, at least as far as I know. So yeah. So basically what the book does is, or what Wilkinson does is, instead of listing the 100 objects and discussing them in a few pages, he organizes the book in 10 chapters, each looking at 10 objects each. And this presents a more topical history of ancient Egypt rather than a chronological one, which Wilkinson did in his The Rise and Fall of Ancient Egypt. The problem is that while this is a very interesting idea, and it does allow for certain parts of Egyptian history, Egyptian culture that might sometimes be glossed over or ignored to get some focus. The problem is that it also allows for repetition. The chapter on supremacy, which is largely about military matters, also kind of gets repeated in the chapter on monarchy. The chapter on bounty, which discusses Egyptian agriculture, gets repeated in mortality, which also does discuss some aspects of Egyptian diet. And the chapter on legacy, the final chapter, which looks at perspectives on ancient Egypt, primarily in the 19th and 20th centuries, ends up almost repeating the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb consecutively. It's like there's a bit about the discovery, and then there's slightly different discussion. It's like, I don't know what happened. So that bugged me quite a bit. I also found myself rather bored with the book, which is rather annoying because Wilkinson wrote one of my favorite books from last year, well, that I read from last year. It came out in 2020, and that was A World Beneath the Sands, which is about the golden age of Egyptology in the 19th and early 20th century, largely from the decipherment of hieroglyphics to the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. So, yeah. So I didn't like that much, and I'm kind of annoyed that the two works on ancient history, on ancient Egypt that came out in this month, I didn't care for either one of them. Man, I reviewed both of them for open letters, so anyway. Although at least I did finish Tutankhamun's Trumpet. I did not finish the last book I read for this week. Well, obviously I didn't finish it because I bailed on it. And that was Revolt in the Netherlands, The 80 Years' War, 1568 to 1648, by Anton van der Lem, translated by Andy Brown. This is a slim history of the Dutch Revolt, the Dutch War of Independence, and it was incredibly boring. I was bored. So I bailed. And I don't know, I kind of think I have a sweet tooth for Dutch history, but that was boring. Anyway, so my reading plans for today, since I bailed on Revolt in the Netherlands, is I'm going to try a chapter tag this afternoon during my regular reading period. And instead of picking a few books in my personal collection that I have right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 5 books from my Amazon wish list and read the excerpts of them. Like the first chapter or as much of the excerpt as there is, and see if there are any that I would like to buy in December or later. I do kind of have to rein in my book buying because, yes, November is definitely going to have a book haul of madness at the end. But anyway, or if I don't really like what I've read, to go ahead and boot it from my wish list, because I do need to get a handle on that, because my Amazon and Alibris wish lists are ridiculously large. So that's my plan for today, and I will actually do a video discussing the results this evening during when I usually do weekly reads. I think I'll do that. Although I will be at the computer rather than here. So anyway. So my plans for this coming reading week are two immense books of history. First is Legacy of Violence, A History of the British Empire by Caroline Elkins. This is a history of the British Empire, focusing on the brutality of the British Empire. Elkins, I know, has some fame over an earlier book she wrote that explored the British response and brutality in the Mau Mau Revolt, which was in Kenya. And then once I finish Legacy of Violence, I am going to tackle In the Land of a Thousand Gods, A History of Asia Minor in the Ancient World by Christian Marek in collaboration with Peter Frei and translated by Steven Randall. This is a massive exploration of ancient Anatolian history, which is that peninsula coming off of Asia near Europe, which is now modern Turkey. The book goes from prehistory to the Roman period. So I'm hoping I have better success than I did with the two Egyptian books, but we shall see. So that's my weekly reads. My plans for next week, I don't know. I was thinking of actually going through some of my wish lists and kind of pruning them. That could be an idea. Of course, also tag videos and anything else that comes to mind. But anyway, BookTube, that's all I've got for this video. So until I see you later this evening with my try chapter tag, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.